Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Ryan Campbell. Ryan, how's things going?
Good, thanks, mates. Yes, surviving the lockdown here in the Netherlands, which is, obviously everywhere around the world it's tough. But, I've got a 3-year-old and a 5.5-year-old who, not going to school or daycare, and it's a bit of a juggling act. But look, at the end of the day, I think we all have to go through these tough periods in what is a tough situation for the world.
Yeah, it's crazy times. So let's take it all the way back with yourself. You're born in Perth. What first attracted you to the sport?
I didn't have a choice, to be honest. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and my earliest recollections of my life are being in the backyard playing cricket with my older brothers and older sister. And then when we get to winter, we'd be kicking a footy around and playing AFL. So, it was basically, that's how we were brought up. There was no video games back those days. And, in Australia, like I say, you played cricket in summer and you played footy in winter. And I loved all of it. I loved the game, and I pretty much wanted to be Rod Marsh, or I wanted to be Dennis Lilly, or whoever I saw on the TV. And that's where it all began. And my passion for sport was ignited. Like I say, a lot to do with, my family. My dad was a bit of a gun cricketer and footballer in the country where he lived a lot of his life. And, my mum and dad were always very supportive of any sport that we played. And, we ended up following that route, and eventually, I guess I needed to decide whether I was going to be an AFL player or a cricket player. I had the opportunity to have a crack at both of those sports, and thankfully for me, I decided that cricket was the one, and I chose cricket, and here I am today.
So what was your first club side back home, and then also what attracted you to wicket keeping?
Yeah, so I guess my first club team was, I played for Balcatta, which was my local club. It was just down the road, and Balcatta was a feeder system to like the WACA pennant cricket you needed to go to, and they were a feeder system to North Perth. So I played played early on for Balcatta, and when I was good enough in under 15s, I think it was back then, I was selected to go down to North Perth, and I was attracted. I loved it. I was never a wicket keeper though as a kid. I actually was a spin bowler. In fact, I made state squads as an off spin bowler, and I think even to this day, if you ask my father, he thinks that I should have always stuck to being an off spinner. At 17, I took a different route because I actually moved to the country. I didn't think I was going to be a professional sportsman, and my sister was living in a place called Kalgoorlie, which is a massive gold mining town in Western Australia, about 600 kilometres east of Perth. And I went there to work, basically. I'd finished my schooling and wanted to work, but it was a massive sporting town, so I could play football at the top level there, and I could play cricket at the top level. And that made it easy for me to get jobs and working. And I worked in the gold refinery, which was a fantastic opportunity for me. Played for the country 11, and I played for Eastern Goldfields at Country Week. So I kind of skipped the whole state under 17, state under 19s, which is, as you can see in today's world, you get into the Australian under 19s or the Indian under 19s or the English under 19s, you kind of earmarked for that. Oh, well, he's going to be a really good player. So I kind of went a different route, but I played in a final for the Eastern Goldfields at the WACA, and we did really well, and we won that game. And there was an old guy sitting in the stands from a club called Bayswater and Morley, and saw a fast bowler called Tim Brooks and myself as the wicket keeper. And I had gone back to wicket keeping at that point. And he invited us. He said, we want you to come down and play at Bayswater and Morley. And there was a bit of to and fro between North Perth, who was my junior club, and Bayswater. But I chose Bayswater, and then Bayswater was my home, and it was a fantastic club. And from there, I was lucky enough to be selected in the WA Colts team, and eventually Rod Marsh invited me to the Australian Cricket Academy. And I guess, as they say, once you're at that academy, it was almost a finishing school, and they did a great job. And, I'll cherish my year that I spent there.
Yes, that was 1994. Is that correct? And who
Yeah.
else was in your at your age group? Any other
Yeah.
household names?
Well, to be honest, so there was 15 guys that went to that academy group, that intake. I think the numbers are something like 14 played for their state, and something like 9 played for their country. So, I was lucky enough to be with Andrew Simon, Shane Lee, these guys that became Dan Marsh, who was a very good player for Tasmania. I was very lucky that, the squad that I was in, Brad Young, Mark Harrity, all these guys, went on. Matthew Nicholson as a fast bowler, Brad Williams as another fast bowler. It was an amazing environment to be around. And, every day you just learn from your mates. You listen to Rod Marsh, whatever he said was gospel. And to be honest, Rod was the one. For me, I was the wicketkeeper. I was sent there as the backup wicketkeeper to Tim Zura for WA. At the time, I got a knock on the door, and in walks this fella, in my opinion, he was a geeky-looking fella with big ears. And it's, "Hi, I'm Adam Gilchrist. I just wanted to come say hi. I'm going to Perth. I've been invited to go and play in Perth." And as you can imagine, as a youngster thinking, geez, well, I thought I was going to be the next wicketkeeper. Now you're definitely going to be the next wicketkeeper. I thought my time was up almost, at 21, 22 years of age. But it was Rod Marsh who pulled me aside and said, "Mate, I want you to try something." And he opened the batting with me in a game against England. And I, did really well and scored at a pretty brisk rate. And he pulled me aside afterwards and said, "Look, I hope you understand that's your future. You're going to be an opening batsman." And the rest, as they say, is history. I went back, I opened the batting in my club team, ended up getting picked for WA, and Mike Hussey and myself were the opening combination for probably, 5 or 6 years for WA. And like later on, I ended up having to wicket keep, obviously with Gilly going away a bit. But, at the start, it was all about batting, because I didn't want to not play for WA. I wanted to be a professional sportsman. And, when you're thrown those sort of curveballs, you either sink into a corner and whimper away, or you find a different way. And, for me, it was batting, and it was opening the batting in my style, I guess. And I was lucky enough that our coach, Wayne Clark, he's a very good man manager, and he wanted me and the team. And Tom Moody, the captain of the time, went out of his way to make myself and Mike Hussey feel really comfortable as the opening batters. And, I think we were lucky enough to be probably a part of one of WA cricket's greatest ever teams. And, I'm very fortunate to be a part of it.
Can you give us any tips and advice in terms of opening the batting as a mindset, facing the new ball, fresh bowlers, and also what was it like sharing it with Mike Hussey, one of the great Australian batsmen of the last era?
Well, I'll be very clear in here. You have to do it your own way. I could never be Mike Hussey. I couldn't. I was an aggressive player that needed to take it to the fast bowlers of the opposition team. And, you'd rock up to Sheffield Shield games, and in those times, we saw a glimpse with Michael Slater. He was, he went about it in a dashing sort of way. And I was always naturally aggressive. I couldn't be any other way. So, to put myself and Mike together, for instance, the very first time I opened the batting, I didn't know I was opening the batting. I played my first game batting down the order, and Wayne Clark had decided that I was going to the top. I was going to replace Mark Lavender as Mike's partner. He didn't tell me, because he knew, as my character, I would have worried about it. But what did happen was I rocked up on the day of the game and thinking that Murray Goodwin was going to be opening, because he came into the team. And, Wayne just pulled me aside with Mike and said, "Look, we think you two are our future." But he'd already told Mike about it. And so Mike had already had a list of how we were going to go about it. This is what we needed to achieve to be special and to be successful. And part of that, he was very clear, and I was very clear. I have to be me, and you have to be you. And in the end of the day, we'll talk about it all the time. We basically said, let's get to 10. He would say, let's get to 10. I would say, yep, as fast as we can, and let's just keep going. And that was the way we went. It also helped, of course, that I was lucky enough when I looked up on the board at the Wacker to see Justin Langer, Damien Martin, Simon Kadich, Tom Moody, Adam Gilchrist all sitting behind me, thinking, well, I can go as hard as I want because we got a bit behind me. So yeah, mate, it was just opening the batting is one of those things. You have to find your own way. You can't be manufactured into it. And I think we've seen that where, guys have been made to open because the team as a whole, and look, they do a good job, but you've got to be a natural, and there's different ways of going about it. David Warner goes about it his way. Joe Burns went about it his way. Joe Burns, and that's not being disrespectful to Joe Burns, but he did it his way and found it was a bit hard. Now we've seen other openers. Chris Rogers was a great example. Chris Rogers, technically, probably you could pick it apart. His way of going about it, his technique, but he found a way, and he was mentally strong and did it, like I say, his way, and became a great player. First class, his first class numbers, are equal with the best around the world. So, like I say, my advice to anyone is you've got to go about your own way. But the one thing that I'll keep coming back to, and this is, I guess, the coach in me now, you have to have an elite basic game. In today's world, players play 360 degrees, and it's unbelievable. The ramps, the scoops, the reverse, everything. And that's just in the white ball game. But under extreme pressure in 4-day cricket or in 1-day cricket when the ball is swinging or the ball seaming around, or in T20 when it's a final and the pressure is on, if you can't go back to your elite basic game and stand up to the pressure of brilliant bowling, you're going to be found out. And as we know in today's world, in international cricket especially, mate, everyone's got videos of everyone. So they're going to probe and they're going to find issues and what they're going to do, and they're going to come up with a tactic. So if you haven't got that basic game, and I say this to all my kids, worry about the ramps and the scoops later on and the reverses. That's great. Practice it, do it, all that sort of stuff. But work on your basic game. And if you've got issues or technical flaws, you need to fix them because you're going to get found out.
Do you think, in terms of making it to the highest level, whether it be states, county cricket in the UK, for example, or international, that if you don't have a solid game to play off the back foot, you're going to find it very difficult? So, especially in the UK, where the pitches are a little bit slower, youngsters almost are facing slower bowlers, pitch-up bowlers, swing bowlers. They're always on the front foot and making that almost transition. What are your views on that? Obviously, in Australia, you growing up on the Wacker, it zips around. Australians are known to having a good game to play off the back foot. What are your views on that?
Well, mate, if like you say, I was brought up in Perth. If I didn't play off the back foot, I was going to die. And that's this cold, hard facts. You're going to get hit in the head. And to be honest, I think in today's world, part of the techniques have been so front foot dominated. It is why people are getting hit in the head so often. It is why, helmets have given everyone, I guess, a false sense of security. When blokes are playing the hook or pull shot, when, in all honesty, their technique shouldn't be standing up to it. They should be just ducking and diving. So, yeah, you do need to play off the back foot and off the front foot. In fact, the greatest example, in my opinion, is Virat Kohli. Now, Virat Kohli is an Indian and plays in India, where you think the wickets don't bounce, so he's just going to be a front foot player. But, mate, his record when he comes to England or Australia is outstanding because his transference of way to go back is as quick as a flash, and he gets there and he gets in great positions. And, to me, I think we've seen a lot of front foot bullies who T20, in all honesty. And again, I'm not going to be here to, knock down T20 cricket, because it is. It's very exciting. I'll watch it. I love watching it. I love guys playing it. But it has bred a new version of big flat track bullies. They put their front foot straight down the middle of the wicket. It's generally on a flat wicket, small boundaries, big bats, swing through the line and hit it for six and go, oh, yeah, that's great. But when they get found out, when serious pace comes on, or the wicket suddenly gives you a little bit, like I said before, they get found out. And, to me, I would really enthuse and push for every youngster out there, front and back. You have to do it. And to be honest, the back foot is also, and again, this is being a Perth boy, it's probably one of the things that I look for in a player is how they pick their bat up. If you're not picking your bat up, doesn't matter if you go back or forward or whatever, you're going to probably get hit in the head anyway because your hands are too low. And that's the difference between subcontinent players who are generally their hands are a bit low. But, a great pickup, if you look at the Brian Laras, the Ricky Pontings, the Virat Kohlis, don't look at anything else. Look at how they pick their bat up. And then I think the secrets will be unveiled. Even someone like Steve Smith, who's so unique, but at the point of delivery, watch where his bat gets to. And that pickup of his is so important to his game. The rest sort of, goes with it. And like I say, to all young players out there, you're picking your bat up is so important to also playing forward as well as back.
And then when you made your ODI debut for Australia 2002 against New Zealand, how was that one of the proudest moments of your career?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously I was living in Gilly's shadow, so to speak. For WA, I was the keeper by then. And, I played in an era of such amazing Australian cricket. To be honest, I didn't think I'd ever play for Australia. I knew that Gilly would hardly ever miss a game. And, to get that call up, to go to the SCG, for my mum and dad to fly over there and sit amongst 40,000 people and watch me go out to bat, even the little things of when I arrived, I think I arrived about 11 o'clock one night, 2 days before the game, and went to training the next day at the SCG. And you walk into the ground, you walk into the change rooms, where do I sit? I'm looking for a West Australian guy so I can sort of say good day. And, Andrew Simons was selected by then. So I knew some of the guys, and I played against them all, but, you don't feel as confident. But, I walked into the change rooms, and Steve Waugh's name is emblazoned in his bit. And right next to him is Ryan Campbell in gold, on a gold embroidered plate with my name, my Australian kit hanging there. It's like, geez, this is the real thing. And, to actually have the opportunity then to train with the guys. And I spent probably, an hour on my own with Shane Warne, just so he could bowl everything he had. And again, the funny thing is, as a wicketkeeper, you back yourself to know what spinners bowl, but just to have that opportunity to listen to him talk about what he's going to try and do and what he wants to do and what he wants batsmen to do was just an amazing experience. And then the next day, I received my cap and, sat there and just was the noise it made. I think we fielded first, and the sound it made, from 40,000 Sydney-siders screaming Australians and, wanting Kiwi blood. I think we lost the game, to be honest. But look, it was fantastic. And to be honest, it was over before I knew it, because that night we had one, by the time we got back to the hotel, it was probably 11 o'clock, and everyone actually said, Michael Bevan was very clear, we all had to meet up for a beer because it was my, first game, and we had a quick beer. I was on a flight 5 a.m. the next morning. I had to fly back to Perth and play in a Shield game that day. So I literally didn't even have a chance to get it all in. But, at the end of the day, I'll always remember that day. And, I think, I played once more, and it's a great thing. Again, as a person, I guess, I always think that I didn't really achieve that much in cricket. I was lucky to play 10 years for WA. And, you know, I sort of say to people, I only played twice for Australia. And it takes other people to remind you that, mate, you played twice for Australia in an era which was unbelievable. And that kind of, you know, takes the pressure off. And, you know, you sort of think, yeah, well, actually, that probably was a pretty cool thing to do. And, you know, maybe one day when my 5-year-old gets old enough and if he asks, I might show him a video of that day.
You mentioned some of the greats that you played with, Warne, McGrath, Steve Waugh. Aside from their actual talent, their playing talent, is there anything that kind of stood out to you that you could say that's the reason why they were at that top elite level? Was their mindset slightly different? Did they train differently? Can you give us a little insight?
It's very easy, actually. Mental toughness. I've never seen mentally tougher people. It didn't matter what position they were in. They backed their game and they backed their teammates. And they were just never flustered. You know, it didn't matter that people could be calling for your blood or, you know, wanting you out of the team, or, you know, the opposition, it's 5 for 60 and we're chasing 300. They're going to win. They back themselves to win the game. Of course, it doesn't always happen, but their characters never change. And what I noticed of being lucky enough to play in a time of amazing players, and like I say, the Langers, the Martins, the Caddiches, the Gilcrests, those players, Tom Moody in the WA team, Mike Hussey, they never changed. They were the first to have a beer with you. After they played 100 test matches, they still come and have a beer with you. They still sit down. They want to talk cricket. How you been, mate? They remember, you know, oh, how's your wife? No, how going? How's this? How's that? They're just normal people. And I think a lot of the public don't get to see that, although I guess we see a bit more of it now because of social media. You know, I guess people feel a bit more contacted to their heroes and stuff, but, you know, the actual greats, they're just really good people. And, you know, I've been asked about Adam Gilchrist a million times in my career. If anyone should dislike Adam Gilchrist, it should be me. He was the one in my way. Wherever I went, he was in the way. But he's one of my greatest mates because he's a great person. And even the way he walked into my room at the academy just to go out of his way to have that conversation with me, that just tells you about the guy. And, you know, that's what always stick in my mind. Those great players, they're great people. And I'll always remind my players, when I coach, mate, never forget where you started from. Always remember your roots, because we may get to certain heights one day, but elite sport, it's hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And the old rusty gate, as we say, will swing back and hit you in the face one day. And when you're down in the dumps, you want those good people and you want your friends from your roots to be able to help you out. So don't change as a person. So yeah, for me, it's their character. It's how good of people they are, which made them great.
Also in the 2003 World Cup squad, but didn't quite make the final cut. Did you feel that you did deserve a spot in the final playing 11 at any point down the line? What was your thoughts during that period?
Yeah, I reckon of all the things that I look back at, the 2003 World Cup was the one that hurt me the most. Australia, you know, you take 15 players to a World Cup, and it's always the one, it's that and the Ashes. Generally, you're always taking your backup wicketkeeper. And, you know, for me, I was in really good form. I was probably the leading run scorer for Australia A. I was batting down the list and I was keeping really well. And, you know, I guess at that time, people had talked about me mainly because I started ramping and things like that. But I was ready. And I remember the day, it was Australia A were playing Sri Lanka on, I think it was New Year's Day. We had a fixture and they were also selecting the team. And Alan Border was the coach of the Australian A team and he was also selector. And he pulled me aside and actually said to me that I'm literally going to be the most unluckiest person in Australia right now because I was going to be the 16th player. And the reasons for that were Michael Bevan had a hamstring injury and they weren't 100% sure how long he was going to be out for, which weakened their batting at some point. And then Darren Lehman got suspended against Sri Lanka for, I think he racially vilified someone, and he got suspended for 3 games. So he was going to miss the first 3 games of the World Cup. So that was 2 batters that they felt if it was going to come to me, or they could take Jimmy Marr, who was a outstanding batsman, and his record in Mercantile Mutual in domestic one-day cricket was outstanding for Queensland. They were going to err on the side that Jimmy might be able to keep. He's not a keeper, but if we throw him the gloves in a backup role, then he might have to do it. So they decided, because of those injuries and suspensions, that I was going to miss. And like I say, that was probably the most disappointing moment for me, because I sort of was in the form of my life, and I felt I was at the peak of my career and ready to go. But, because of a few different circumstances, I missed out.
And then moving on from there, you had a couple more seasons playing state cricket. And then you had the stint at the ICL?
Well, to be honest, I retired from cricket quite early. I was only, I think I was 31 or maybe just turned 32. And I was at the peak of my powers again. I was still playing well. I made 100 for WA the week before. But I'm very much a person that I never wanted to keep playing just because it was my paycheck and I was just hanging on because I wanted to play for that. It was about the love of the game for me. And I know that sounds a bit corny, but that's just the person I am. In my private life, I was so busy. I was actually working in the media. I was never going to be a coach. I was going to work in the media. I was on a radio show. I was working on TV already with the news. I even had my own travel show. It was called Postcards WA. I was one of the hosts of Postcards WA. So I literally cricket was getting in my way a little bit, and that's my future. So I felt I'd planned really well for the afterlife. And I remember I came back from the I think we toured Adelaide or something, and I made 100. And the great man David Hooks, who was just such a wonderful man, and obviously left us way too early. He had a TV show on Fox, and I was actually invited to come on that show. And we were wherever we were, we flew up together. And I remember asking him, Hooksy, just out of curiosity, mate, when do you know when it's time to go? And he said, Camo, it doesn't matter what anyone says, only you will know. And it'll be this voice, and it'll get louder and louder. And if you choose to ignore it, you won't enjoy the rest of your career. It's time to go. And that voice to me came at about 3 a.m. I was in bed. I just woke up bolt upright and just thought, I'm done. Like, I don't want, I've had enough. And so I went and saw the coach, Wayne Clark, and we were actually due to fly somewhere for a T20 game. I think it was one of the early T20 games. And, I just said, mate, I'm done. I've had enough. I'm going to call it quits. And so for me, it was done quite early. And then I was so busy with work. I loved the game. Don't get me wrong. I still loved it. But I was so busy with everything else. And I tried to keep myself away from cricket, because even though I commentated on it and stuff, I kind of stayed away because I loved it. And I was working breakfast radio for a show called Nova FM, and I was the sporty guy, and talking absolute rubbish every morning. And all of a sudden on a Friday night, I had a few under my belt, and I had a phone call from Damien Martin, who said to me, look, mate, I'm at the ICL. My team desperately needs an opening batsman or wicketkeeper, and I know you haven't played for 3 years. I think it was 2 or 3 years. I need you to come. And I said, mate, I don't even play anymore, mate. I'm this busy. I've got these jobs. I just can't. And he literally said, how much? What do you want? It's 6 weeks. How much do you want? I said, mate, come on. I'm not like that. You know that. And he goes, no, just say it. So I just whipped out a figure and just ignored it, kept drinking. Suddenly my phone rang again. He said, mate, it's a done deal. We'll see you in, I think it was about 5 weeks or something. I was like, oh, gee, what am I going to do here? So, yeah, I very quickly had to get back in. I ended up playing club cricket at my local club, and just to try and get back into it. And I really enjoyed it. It probably ignited the passion back in me for cricket. The ICL was a great experience. Obviously, it wasn't the IPL, but there's a few dodgy dealings going on, I think, throughout the tournament. But I really enjoyed the game, and that probably got me back into it. And hence, after that, I probably started to get back in. I was always a level 3 coach, and then I started probably to work my way back into more cricket stuff instead of just solely being in the media.
Yeah, then talk us through how the move to Hong Kong came about. Talk us through that period in your life.
Yeah, mate, it was a funny one because, like I say, I was doing coaching stuff. I was helping my local club, and I was still working in the media. And then a friend of mine who was from WA, Charlie Burke, who was the national coach of Hong Kong at the time, he actually rang me and said, "Look, Cambo, I know this is out of the blue, but I would love you to come up here for a week. And the Hong Kong team are on the up. We hope to be a bit more successful, but I'd love to run a camp and have you as a batting consultant, and just pick our brains and see if you can add things." And I went up there. I loved the place. I'd never been to Hong Kong, but I'd been to Hong Kong once for the Hong Kong Sixers, but I didn't remember a day of it, because obviously the Hong Kong Sixers, all you do is get drunk and hit cricket balls, and so my memories of that wasn't great. But I spent the week there. I really enjoyed the job and working there, and didn't think much of it. And then a couple of months later, Charlie rang me and said, "Look, the Kowloon Cricket Club," which in Hong Kong, there's the Kowloon Cricket Club and the Hong Kong Cricket Club, and they're the two, I guess, the pillars of cricket there. And the coach of Hong Kong of the Kowloon Cricket Club is leaving, and they are looking for someone to be the coach, director of cricket. You might have to play some cricket, for them. But if you're interested, I would love for you to be my assistant coach for the national team. We'll put it all into one. And so I spoke to the guy, Matty Collins, who was the guy who ran Kowloon Cricket, and there was a lot of applications. I definitely wasn't the best coach, because I know they had Andy Moles and all these sort of guys applied for it. But I think the lure of me still being able to play was like, yeah, well, let's just go with him. And I guess that was my first real taste of being the big cheese, so to speak, of coaching. And I loved it in Hong Kong. It's just one of those great places. I was lucky enough, I met my wife there. I had my son was born there. My program from Kowloon Cricket Club, I think I took over a program where there was 38 kids involved in cricket there. When I left, there was something like 265 in my program. Our senior men's team provided 12 of the 22 national squad members. I think the under-19s, I think we had 8 of the 20 under-19s players as well. So I think whatever I was doing was quite successful. And with that, the national team made 2 World Cups. We were lucky enough to make 2 T20 World Cups. So, mate, it was a really exciting time for me, and I loved it. Like I say, Hong Kong's a wonderful place, and I met some great people, and I've always say that I was lucky to go there.
Did you enjoy then again play on the playing side of things? Did you enjoy it? Was it age 44? You made your debut? What was that like?
Yeah, mate, I'll tell you, look,
It was in the World Cup, wasn't it? The 2016 World Cup.
Yeah, the World Cup. So what was happening was, I played for Kowloon. I played in my Premier League team, and I did pretty well without sounding like an egotistical bloke. Mate, I was clearly the number one batter in the competition for the 3 years I was there, or the 4 years I was there. I led the runs in everything. But the thought of playing for Hong Kong I never even thought about it. I knew, in a weird twist of fate, my grandmother, which I never met, she died when my father was, I think, 3 years of age. So there was this big of a dark secret in the Campbell family, but which never really came to surface until I was probably 35, that my grandmother was actually from Kowloon and was from Chinese. And that sort of got me thinking. But then Charlie Burke just kept saying, mate, we've lost our experienced players. Irfan Ahmed had been done for not failing to reveal an approach. He was a very good opening batsman, all-rounder. And I guess the side was sort of stunned, so to speak, that was happening, as everyone was. And he just kept on me and on me. And look, the things were, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to play at that age because I felt, one, I was too old. Two, I didn't want to bring bad press to associate cricket because I think there's a bit of a stigma about, oh, yeah, it's just old blokes who come from another country generally end up playing for teams and this, that, and the other. I was very conscious of that. And the last one was I didn't want to embarrass myself. Like, the facts are I was 43, 44, and I didn't really want to do it. But at the end of the day, Charlie kept going and going and going. I just got sick of him saying it. He probably got me a few beers deep one night and said, come on, mate, you got to just say yes. And eventually I said, okay, if you're going to do it, let's do it. Stop hounding me. Let's go. But I'm going as the batting coach first. So I'll make sure everyone else is going okay. And then if you pick me in the team, then I'll play. And then, so eventually I ended up opening the batting. I think I opened the bowling in a couple of games too, which was just like, oh my God, can someone just let me lie down here for a minute? But mate, again, it's one of those ones where at the time I probably didn't enjoy it. But now I kind of look back and go, you know what? Of course I would have loved to have done it when I was 30, but I don't think I embarrassed myself too much. I batted pretty well against Afghanistan. I bowled pretty well. And in the end of the day, I helped the young team get to where they wanted to go. So, in the end of the day, I was probably the coach, Simon Cook, at that point also had come on board and he wanted me to keep playing. He wanted me to play in the World Cricket League in the 50-over competition. And then that's when I sort of had to say, mate, enough's enough. I've got to the end here. And, luckily the job for, as it turned out, the Netherlands were coming to Hong Kong to play in a vital World Cricket League matches. And I was selected to play for Hong Kong and had to withdraw. And no one knew what the reasons were. When the selectors went around the room saying, well, why isn't he going to play? Because we want him in the team. And Charlie Burke was the one that just had to say, look, he can't play. Just let it go. They didn't realise that I was just about to be named coach of the Netherlands. And playing against the Netherlands probably wouldn't have been a good look.
Yeah, so how did the approach come about with you getting the gig with the Netherlands, and how have you found it? Was it 2017 you started your role with them? You've been involved in T20 qualifiers, World T20 qualifiers. How have you found it so far?
Mate, I've loved it. Like, I've been here 4 years now. I'm, again, between you and I'm probably about to put pen to paper on a new contract, which is really nice, for them to have faith in me. Look, at the end of the day, when I was in Perth, one of the other things I had was a management company, and one of my good friends was Michael Swart, who was a very good player for WA, did well for WA, but was Dutch. And he wanted, the WA thing didn't quite work out, and he wanted to play for the Netherlands. So I did the deal to basically get him there and talk about it. So I had a vested interest in watching Dutch cricket and keeping a close eye on it. And through that, I actually had a holiday with my wife. We just got engaged and we decided to go on a holiday, and we went to Amsterdam to catch up with Swarter and stayed some time there and had drinks with Peter Boren and met some of the players. So I kind of knew the guys, and then, through the Hong Kong playing against them, I knew enough. But, I applied for the job, and I think Peter Boren was very strong that I was the type of guy that was probably needed. I think Dougie Brown was another that came very close to getting that job for this job. It was nice. My interview went really well, and then they offered it to me. And like I say, it was when I got offered the job, it was like, oh, do I really want to leave Hong Kong? But in the end of the day, my wife is actually, even though she was born in Hong Kong, she's Dutch. She is a Dutch mother, so she was Dutch passport. my son has a Dutch passport. So it was kind of saying, oh, you know what, let's go, because I knew that if I could get the Netherlands playing as good as that they could win the World Cricket League. And if they won the World Cricket League, they were going to go into the Super League, which is then I'm up against the best 12 teams of the world. And I also knew that, you know, their T20 was okay, but they were a bit lack of consistency. But I reckon I could straighten them out a little bit. And, you know, when I took over probably a team that played the same 8 players or 9 players every single game, and like a lot of the associate countries. And I don't do it that way. I want youngsters to be, you know, put into the teams. I need to have a supply line to make sure that cricket in Netherlands is going to be okay down the track when I've left. You know, I hate when coaches just worry about now and not think about down the track for the next generation. So I think we've got to that point now where, you know, we had to make some tough decisions. You know, my time here, Peter Boren, you know, him stepping down as captain was one of those big decisions. You know, the not selecting, you know, if anyone knows Dutch cricket, if I had told you when I took over in 2017 that I would go to the World Cup qualifiers in 2019, that I would leave out Boren, Steph Myberg and Wes Barassi, they'd all probably look at me and think I was mad. But the one thing I knew, despite the fact that everything that Ryan ten Doeschate had said, and he was never going to play cricket for the Netherlands ever again, I backed myself that I was going to make a program that was so good and so professional that he would want to come back. And I guess if anyone asks me what my greatest achievement here with the Netherlands is, it's getting Ryan ten Doeschate back, because that kind of showed that our program was working. And, you know, he's been fantastic for this squad. Obviously, the year off with COVID has hurt us because, you know, guys like that are almost done. You know, I was hoping to take him to Australia for the T20 World Cup. And, you know, we've now got a group of fast bowlers that are, I think, easily the best fast bowling network in the whole of associate cricket. We've got 7 or 8 to look at. Our batting is getting stronger. The Colin Ackerman guys of the world who bolster our batting. But again, it's all our youngsters, the guys that you probably weren't given an opportunity. Max O'Dowd, Tobias Vicey was not even heard of. Bus Delata will be an absolute gun for the Netherlands over the next few years. And that was all on the back of also changing of leadership. Peter Saylor has been outstanding for Dutch cricket. He's a different form of captain. You know, Pete Boren was a follow me sort of guy. I'm going to lead it, do it my way. And he was brilliant at it. Whereas Pete's a bit more, let's have a conversation about this, guys. What do you want to do? What can we do? Let's get involved. What's your role in the team? And that, I think, like I say, at the end of 2019, when we won the World Cup qualifiers, if anyone saw the Netherlands, you would have thought that, gee, that's a really exciting team and a good team to watch. We haven't played for a year, so I don't know what that team's going to look like soon. But, you know, hopefully we'll get all the wagons back together and we'll be as competitive as anything in the Super League.
Now, you've definitely had some great success. So just branching off from that, if someone came up to you and said, what is your best piece of advice for being a cricket coach, what would you say?
Again, you got to be you. You can't manufacture a character out of a book, because there's so many coaching books now. Do it this way, do it that way. You know, you have to find your own way. And the facts are, my job is to make myself out of a job. You want your system and your program and your playing group to be able to function without you. And that's the whole thing about coaching. And you know what? If your ego can't get out of the way and say, oh, no, it's all about me, I'm the coach. And again, T20 is a bit different now because you get to go on the ground after 10 overs and say something. But at the end of the day, I prepare my players. And once they cross that white line, my job is done. I will analyse, I will pick it apart, but I'm not going to be yelling and screaming from the sideline. If Peter Saylor comes to me and wants to discuss something, 100%. For instance, in T20, he likes me to organise our batting order as we're going in the game, because he thinks I see it a little bit better than himself, because he just wants to concentrate on his batting. So I have a bit more hands-on in that sort of situation. But at the end of the day, you have to be you. You want to portray how you see the game is going to go and what you want to have from the game. I'm very big on we're humble when we win, we're gracious in defeat. That's one of the big things. But we're going to have fun. Put a smile on your face. This is supposed to be a game, and let's go about it. And that's me. And I can be the grumpiest person going around. Don't get me wrong. If our players step out of line, and again, at the start of my time here at the Netherlands, I was pretty outspoken and pretty aggressive to the way we played, because I think there was a culture of this is a bit of a holiday, and I had to stop that and stamp it out, and had to go a different way and make it become more professional. But like my players say now, gee, I don't think they've heard me raise my voice in the last year or two, because I think everyone understands where we're going and what we're doing. They probably get grumpy when I haven't had sleep for about 3 days because my youngsters aren't sleeping or something, so they know when to stay clear of me. But yeah, mate, you change, you adapt with the squad you have, and I'll always say I hope that my players will all understand that my door is always open. And we've had some times here where players have had some issues, and they've been able to pick up the phone, and to me that means my message is getting across, because we have to look after the person, not just the player, because when you think about it, if you're looking after a senior team, generally you got guys from 18 years of age to 33, and they're all in different parts of their life. And you do have to be able to help them through it, and, help them guide a way so they can be the best cricketer they can be. And that's one part of it. So, yeah, it's made. I think to any young coach out there, I would say, go for it. It's the most rewarding job in the world. It's really enjoyable. It can be frustrating at times, but everything has those frustrations, and just do it your way.
Ryan, perfect. Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Great talking through your career, and all the best for the months ahead. So thank you.
Thanks, Neel. Thanks for having me, mate.
So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Ryan Campbell. Thank you.